But now I want to get into these polls from YouGov now.
Okay.
Because these polls are devastating to the case of Joe Biden. They're if he can read the you look at your eyes, Colin, you're like devastating to the case. I want to talk about they polled all these swing states.
Okay.
And they polled Joe Biden and then they polled the respective Senate candidate. And it tells an interesting story. So when we look at Arizona, we have Joe Biden against Donald Trump. Donald Trump is getting 44% of the vote. Joe Biden's getting 37%. There's 10% not sure. Everyone else is going third party. But specifically, we look at the Hispanic vote. You have Donald Trump winning the Hispanic vote by 8 points, 40-32. When you go down to the Senate race of Ruben Gallego versus Kari Lake, Ruben Gallego wins 48. Kari Lake gets 41. When we look at the Hispanics, Ruben Gallego gets 47% of the Hispanics. Kari Lake only gets 33% of the Hispanics. So, but the not sure category is 10% for both Senate and for president.
Okay.
10% unsure by July is still a lot of unsure to me.
Okay. I would have to look at that historically.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I understand that. But, like, it's one of those things where I feel like the Democratic base has just not come home. And my source for that is let's go into that's Arizona, okay? Let's go down into the state of Georgia. Let's go into Georgia, where the Democratic wins in Georgia have been built off of the back of the African American high turnout rates.
Yep.
And when we look at Georgia, Joe Biden gets 40%, Donald Trump gets 44%. Okay? The unsure is 8%. But when we look at the black population, their unsured rate is 13. The young vote, their unsured rate is 12. These are Democrat-leaning bases that are still saying not sure. And if you assign those not sure to the respective candidates, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, based off who they're most likely to support, Joe Biden ends up tying Donald Trump in this poll on Georgia. But because these Democrat bases are not sure, it's a 4-point lead for Trump. And what that also tells me is that really boosts Harris's case. Because Harris is somebody who's younger and is black, who I think can pull in the not sure right now.
Sure. I get that. I mean, I guess younger black, but just generally more stable. Right? She just feels like a safer person for someone who just saw that Biden debate performance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. One other thing I want to talk about with Harris, my mom made a good point to me on a phone call recently that months ago, Republicans were relishing every chance they got to attack Harris.
Yeah.
Every time, like they were like, a vote for Biden because he's so old is basically a vote for Kamala Harris, and that's the worst thing in the world. Or at least that was the implication. That was supposed to be the end of the sentence.
Yeah.
Why are they more worried about Harris now? Why are we more okay with Harris now? Are we only okay with Harris because she's better relative to what Biden has shown himself to be? Or do we think Harris might actually be stronger as a candidate than we used to think?
That's a really good point. I think actually it's twofold. I think I never gave Harris a fair shake because she ran against my boy Bernie in 2020. And I was like, I'm pro Bernie. Like, get out of here. How dare you challenge the king? But after like examining her speeches and everything, and like actually listening to her and like giving her a fair shake, she doesn't come across as bad to me. And maybe that's happening with more Democrats. My Twitter feed is a lot of progressives, and they were all anti-Kamala, you know?
Yeah.
And now all of them are saying, Joe, get out and put Kamala in right now.
Yeah.
These are people who called Kamala Coppola or something because she was an attorney general who was, prosecuting people for weed or something. And they would call her a cop. And now they're like, please give me Kamala.
Yeah.
It
just goes to show that it's the framing and the perspective of the story that matters. And like, it's not, honestly, there's going to be negligible policy differences between a Harris-led administration and a Biden administration.
Zero policy differences.
Exactly. So
zero.
It only matters how it's being framed in the media, the thoughts about the political support. And really, I think like Harris is exciting now, right? Like just because Biden is weak, Harris is exciting.
That is
and
so
before Harris, for some reason, the idea of her was frightening.
Yeah.
Right. It was worse. It was disheartening.
What's interesting is I'm actually excited by a possible Kamala presidency right now.
Really?
I am. Like, I feel like,
I'm completely neutral.
well, I'm excited in the same way. I'm excited that I think it could be possible to win with her, rather as I'm doomeristic on Biden's chances.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not like I would be as excited if Biden were to win than Kamala.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
I want to go into one more state here, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
This is like the tipping point state. The person who wins Pennsylvania is going to win the whole thing. Okay?
You think so?
Yeah. Pennsylvania is going to be the one. If Joe Biden can't win Pennsylvania, can't win the election.
Yeah.
Donald Trump doesn't necessarily need Pennsylvania.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. But he could lock it down with Pennsylvania. But
Yes.
Joe Biden needs Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Right? It's Joe Biden's tipping point state. Donald Trump leads 43-40. There is 10% not sure. But if we go down to the Senate race, Bob Casey Jr. gets 50%, the Democrat, and the Republican gets 38%.
Wow.
There was a massive difference, and this difference is coming from, right now, it's coming intensely from the Jesus Christ, can I read? One, the black vote. The black vote is way more sure about voting for Bob Casey than it is for Joe Biden. The young vote is way more sure. And this goes to show you that Joe Biden has a base problem. And the problem with this election is not Democrats. The problem is Joe Biden.
Yeah.
When we look at the generic ballot, Democrats lead the generic ballot by an average of like 1 point. When people are asked, do you want the Democrats or the Republicans to control Congress? People most likely say the Democrat. It's a Joe Biden problem. And that's why I think I'm so bullish on Harris winning.